simple truth, rising up to explore the difficult topics of real life. Join us as we proclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful with the simple truth of Jesus Christ and His holy Catholic Church through Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism. And now, your host, Jim Havens.
It is great to be back with you on The Simple Truth, where we proclaim the life-giving reality of Jesus and His Catholic Church. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of Saint Joseph. It is Wholeness and Healing Monday, fighting to cultivate the health of the whole person, mind, body, and soul. With our co-host, my lovely wife, Becky Havens. She is a Catholic wife and mother with a passion and calling to educate people about the importance of caring for our bodies that the Lord has blessed us with by living a healthy lifestyle. She helps others to think outside the cultural norms and to be their own advocate while not falling into the many pressures of modern medicine. Becky is the author of Toxin Free in 12 Months, a 12-month guide to help you transition over to a toxin-free lifestyle. She also wrote a boycott list of over 600 pro-abortion companies. You can get both those resources for free. Learn more at her website, safehavensmama.com. Our topic today, reducing breast cancer risk. So just off the top, we always want to make mention, especially on a topic like this, that we're not doctors, we're not scientists, just regular people here looking to live well and raise our family. But we do believe in objective truth and in asking questions when things do not make sense. We're not giving medical advice here, but we do want to offer a forum here today. We know a thing or two, but there's still a ton we don't know. We do have some personal experiences, and we know that you do as well. And we would love to hear from you today. Put out the morning survey already. We got some great responses. We're going to get to as many of those as we can today. But if, we do our best to get to all of them, but it's always the best to call in. That way we can make sure to get you your question, your comment into the show for sure. If you call in, we'll put that phone number out in a little bit. And if you want to get on the morning survey and you're not getting it, just go to thestationofthecross.com, go to the Simple Truth page, scroll down, put your email address in there. But Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We've been off for a little bit since we've done a live show here on Monday. Great to be back. And Becky, why this topic, reducing breast cancer risk? It does go along with some of the adventure that we've been on over the past month. And what intrigues you here, though? What can you share with us on this topic, reducing breast cancer risk, by way of introduction?
Yeah, I would say that breast cancer is on the rise dramatically. And I feel like every time we hear of somebody getting breast cancer, we think to ourselves, okay, am I going to get this? How am I going to avoid this? What am I going to do to help myself not get breast cancer? Why are all these women getting breast cancer? What's going on? What's the difference here? And all these questions go running through our heads, and we want to find answers. And it's crazy because you see in October all of the pink breast cancer awareness propaganda everywhere, but you see the rise of breast cancer increasing. And so there's a ton of money in this, and it's like, where's the money going? Why have we not made huge strides in this area? And so I think in general, it's really good to just talk about it, to put it out there, get people's, different tips on what they're doing, what's been shown to work, and I'm just going to talk about it. So that's my thought.
Okay, very good. Yeah, we'll get into more personal experiences related to some of this as we go. I know that I have a grandmother who did have breast cancer for a time, fought it, and has been free of it now for, I think, a couple decades at least, thanks be to God. But this is a terrible ailment, obviously, very common. I believe it's about 1 out of 8 women will have breast cancer in some way here. And also it's possible for men to get breast cancer. It's about 100 times more likely for women to get it, though. And one of the most common cancers in women, of course. And so this is something that is of particular interest to women here today, but also this is something that is, I would say, particular interest to men in the sense that We've got wives, we've got daughters, we've got sisters, we've got grandmothers. These are things that we ought to have a sense of and be able to not be blindsided by too much, but to have a good grasp of, a good working grasp of some of these concepts that we're going to go over here today. So this show, I think, is it's broadly for everybody, and especially if you know very little about this topic, I think it's going to be very interesting. But also, we're going to hit some alternative things maybe you never heard before as we go. But Becky, anything further by way of introduction?
I would just say that I feel like each woman probably has a story on how breast cancer has touched them in some way, whether it's personally or a mom or a sister or a grandmother. And it's becoming more and more common that we all have these type of stories. And it doesn't even matter the age as much. I feel like I've known women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And I think it's important to see what's going on. I think it's important to see different ways that we can prevent it, see ways that if we are diagnosed with that, then how do we move forward with that? And there's a lot of, yucky stuff in the mix. And I think it's important to kind of be able to, go through all of that and be able to pick out what's good and what's not good, because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of money in this area, and we just want to make sure that we're making the right choices for ourselves and those that we love, and just to be aware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's start cracking into it here. So in the survey, we asked, are you male or female, to understand who's responding to the survey here today. Over 70% of the respondents were female. And then we asked, have you ever had breast cancer? And about 13% of the respondents said yes, which that's about right. That's about 1 in 8. And then we asked, if so, how have you treated it, and how has your body responded to the treatment? One gentleman replied that his wife died December 18th, 2018, after 5.5 years of a cancer fight with breast cancer. Certainly, we pray for the repose of her soul, and we pray for you, sir, as well. Thank you for writing in and reminding us, the lethal consequences of this. There is certainly a percentage of people that get breast cancer, and then there's a percentage of people who actually die from breast cancer. Those are different percentages. Many people are able to have some treatment, overcome it. But it can be a gruesome, terrible, very, very difficult fight. That's where our Catholic faith is extremely helpful, to make sure that we're in a state of grace, that we can have some peace in the midst of the storm. And yet, we do need to be mindful. There are people dying every day from cancers, and also breast cancers. And that's why we're doing this show today, is to bring more of it to the light and really talk about this more. I think it's an important topic to bring to Catholic radio here today. We also had a respondent who said, there was a situation where I thought I had breast cancer. One night 2 years ago, I was getting my pajamas on, and I noticed one of my breasts was super sore. I did a self-exam. I found a big lump. I immediately went into panic mode for about 10 minutes trying to determine what I might do. The lump was actually a lump I had had for all my years since I developed, but it was the size of a pea or smaller. It was now 3/4 of an inch from what I could tell. Once I came to reality, I knew I was not going to the doctor. We don't have insurance, and I was not interested in the methods they use. So I went for what I had learned and knew from experience and observations. The treatment that I used worked within 2 weeks, and even the pea-sized lump had completely disappeared. We're going to get into the treatment that she did go with in just a little bit here. So we'll learn more about what she's talking about. But this is the right protocol, right? To be doing regular self-exams, women doing regular self-exams for any changes in any sort of things that are going on in the breast, and if a lump has appeared where there wasn't one before, or if it's changed shape or gotten bigger, or any changes. Isn't that really what the protocol is, what you want to be looking for? And then you want to go get really a medical examination if there has been some change detected. Is that accurate, Becky?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that, what they share is that you're supposed to get checked, each year by a doctor, and they do their own exam, and then you do your own self-check once a month, and you're your best advocate. So you have to notice things that might be changing, and then then the next step is, okay, where do I go from here? What kind of medical advice am I going to seek out? And I think there's a bunch of different options in that area that, we can kind of talk about. But basically, self-exam each month. You're going to be the best person that's going to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the common medical examinations that takes place is the mammogram, of course. We did ask about that. We said, for women, do you go for an annual mammogram? If not, why not? And what other type of breast cancer screening do you use? Got a bunch of responses here. About 70% of the respondents said yes to having an annual mammogram, but a lot of comments about it. One said yes, and an MRI due to strong family history. Another said yes, but for Mother's Day every year, my daughter treats me to a digital infrared thermal imaging session, and I like the extra precaution that it provides. There's no radiation involved, and it's painless. Another said no, because it doesn't make sense to me that I would have someone smash my breast between two pieces of glass to the point of being extremely painful and then exposing them to high amounts of radiation. I've done thermography in cases when I had to do one or the other for my veterans' medical benefits. Another said mammograms are likely causing cancer from the radiation they give off. Read the book Murder by Injection, the story of the medical conspiracy against America. And then another said, I go for a mammogram annually, but I don't think it's safe. They even banned it in Switzerland. Ultrasound is safer. We got the music here, so we are about to hit that break. When we get back, we're going to have Becky respond to a few things in those comments there and get her take on it. But we're offering an open forum here today, talking about breast cancer, specifically talking about reducing breast cancer. If you have a comment, question, anything you want to share with us, feel free to give us a call right now, 1-877-511-5483. Always a blessing to be able to include you in the show on the air, 1-877-511-5483. So when we get back again, diving into those comments. Also, is there anything that you do to lower your risk of breast cancer? Much more when we get back. Stay tuned.
Here at the Station of the Cross, we proudly bring the truths of the Catholic faith to countless listeners through radio and mobile devices, and we're grateful for the feedback we've received.
I'm a widower, parent of 3 almost adults, and listen to you guys around the clock. Father McTigg, Society of Jesus, he's wonderful. Mother Miriam, of course, the Divine Office, and many other great things that Station of the Cross does. So thanks very much for your great work.
I had a friend at work email me and tell me about the Station of the Cross a couple months after it started, and I was so excited. I tuned into it, and I found that I love the Catholic station.
If you've been blessed by listening to the Station of the Cross, let us know. Call 1-877-888-6279, extension 112, then share your testimonial with us.
Ask a Priest Live, weekdays at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross. We'll bring you a different priest each weekday where you can participate in a live Q&A on the topics that matter. To get your question in for Father, call 1-877-511-5483 while the show is live. Email us anytime at priests@thestationofthecross.com or visit our show page at thestationofthecross.com/askapriest.
The Station of the Cross began broadcasting in Buffalo, New York in 1999. Since then, our listening areas have multiplied and expanded into several states. While our mission is to grow the Catholic faith through radio and other media outlets, our apostolate is supportive of but independent from your local diocese. Through your generosity, we are able to inspire countless listeners with the gospel and help lead them to a parish to be spiritually nourished by the sacraments.
Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Becky Havens, and we are talking about reducing breast cancer risk today. If you have any comment, question on this that you'd like to call in with, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. 5483. So just looking right here on what the CDC says about breast cancer screening, what their recommendation is. It says that the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force from the CDC recommends breast cancer screening every 2 years in women aged 50 to 74, and what the protocol here is that it's recommending a mammogram every 2 years for women who are 50 to 74. So that's the CDC. There may be other recommendations out there from various agencies and medical institutions, but that's just one example. Becky, before the break, we asked folks in the survey, went to the survey responses on what their experience is of having annual mammograms. Do they do it? Do they use some other type of breast cancer screening? And a whole bunch of comments, but I just want to raise a couple points here and have you respond to them. One was the digital infrared thermal imaging session that was mentioned as an alternative way to screen, saying that no radiation is involved and it's painless. Another, a couple of people talking about the radiation that comes in that you get when you're having a mammogram, and that that can actually be problematic, could be a cause of cancer. One person recommending a book, Murder by Injection, the story of the medical conspiracy against America. I don't know of that book. I don't know if you know anything about that, but that's one another item that was raised there. Another also questioning the safety of the mammogram, saying that it has even been banned in Switzerland and that ultrasound is safer. Help us wade through some of this, Becky. What's your understanding of it?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of research on this, and it seems to me that while mammograms, I think, can be helpful in some situations, it should not be, this is my opinion only, it should not be the typical screening that is happening for women each year, or sometimes several times a year, because there are some major issues with it. And I think most practitioners will even share that this is true. So no matter what type of screening you get, nothing's going to be 100% set in stone perfect. So I think when you mix a few different screening methods is going to be your best bet. Some issues with mammography is that, you are, like the one woman said, you are squishing your breast tissue very, very thin to get the images. But if you did have cancer at the time, or if you have cystic breasts or something along those lines, you can actually, they have actually found that it can be spread through that means. And so when you're dealing with cancer, you're supposed to be very delicate around that area and just really make sure to keep it enclosed so it doesn't spread and metastasize to other areas. Another issue is that it's painful. I think it's traumatic. I think there's so much fear around a mammogram that women are, number one, afraid not to get it, but then terrified to get it. And a lot of times, especially depending on the tissue in the breast, immediately you go for an ultrasound after. They might say, we found something we want to look at again. Let's go get an ultrasound. And they take you back, and it's scary, and you have to deal with what they find and all of that. So mammograms aren't going to catch everything. The other issue is that they expose you to radiation. That's not a secret. They know that. So a mammogram exposes a woman to, I guess it's 0.4 watts of radiation. There's a certain name for it. I just don't know what it is. So that would be the same as you would get from natural background exposure over 7 weeks. So over time, that's going to cause an issue. And so there are some studies saying, let me just read this one. This is from Dr. Mercola. It says, if you're female, please don't go down the mammogram route. They expose your body to radiation that can be 1,000 times greater than that of a chest x-ray. Then he goes on to say the best option would be thermography screening. That's just his opinion. Another issue is that the premenopausal breast is highly sensitive to radiation. So it can increase your risk by about 1%, with a cumulative 10% increased risk for each breast over a decade. So the thing here, at least in the United States, is, and although it's confusing because they changed it from 50 and older to mammograms every year, but my doctor and many doctors that I know of, they are adamant about you starting screening at 40. So if you're getting a mammogram once a year for 10 years, and each time you get one, your risk increases by 1%, That's a total of 10% increase over 1 year for breast cancer. That is drastically high. That, in my mind, makes no sense. So because, premenopausal breasts are more delicate to radiation, it would make sense that the age would be 50 and over. And even with that, many places say, every 2 to 3 years, especially when there's other methods of screening that are non-invasive and have no radiation. So I would say that, maybe pick two. I would go the thermography route and then an ultrasound route. For me personally, that's what I've done in the past. And that seems to be the best for me. And, maybe a mammogram once every 5 years to kind of get a baseline of an area, that could be helpful. I'm not saying that many women haven't benefited from it, but the way that they have set it up and that it's mandatory and it's like you have to jump through hoops to even get any other screening, I think it's ridiculous. You don't even get a say in the kind of screening you want for your own body, and you're forced to do it. And then you're pressured. And then many women get these false positives, and then they're dealing with the effects. And that's a whole different situation. But another study did kind of, touch on the fact that they're being treated unnecessarily. So a lot of women are having mastectomies, because of these overdiagnoses. So I think it said the overtreatment is 30%. So that means that every 2,000 women invited for screening throughout 10 years, one will avoid dying of breast cancer, and 10 healthy women will not have been diagnosed if they had not been screening and will be treated unnecessarily. So like that means they'll have biopsies, the anxiety alone, they might have even be put on chemotherapy or radiation just in case when they really actually don't have cancer. So that's when you talk about the Switzerland, there's the Swiss Medical Guide, they have actually said to cancel all mammography screenings in Switzerland because they're seeing that, yes, one life is saved. So that's not to discard that at all. But the 10 women who are over screened and have been overdiagnosed, they end up with more issues as well and can go on and get, cancers down the road or issues down the road. And they say this is not the best form of screening, and let's try other forms as well. So I don't see why we wouldn't look into that and why it's totally frowned upon in the United States. But again, I think that there's a lot of money involved, and, breast cancer month is October and you see it everywhere. You see the pink ribbon everywhere, and money goes into all these different funds, and we just don't have much to show for it. It doesn't seem like there's huge strides in it. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like, I think the key is prevention. I think that's where we need to get to the root of it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for all of that. And it's very, very concerning because, while we know some things about breast cancer and reducing the risk or treatments or screenings, there still seems to be so much that we don't know. There still seems to be such a limitation in terms of where the science and the medicine is on this. And yet, as you mentioned, we are, it seems like, throwing a whole lot of money at this in a whole lot of campaigns and fundraising and all of that. So why aren't we further along? I mean, thanks be to God for how much we do understand, but it does seem like we probably should have more information, more scientific data on all of this, better screening protocols, better treatment protocols, everything at this point than what we actually currently have. So very interesting, but obviously we want to, this is something just like all cancers that you want to detect it as soon as possible. You certainly want to try to reduce your risk for it to as much as you possibly can in factors that you can control. But then also, if you were to be afflicted with a cancer, breast cancer, any kind of cancer, you want to catch it as soon as possible, certainly, so that you could make some moves and combat it immediately. That's going to make a big difference, how early you detect it. So all of these things are very, very important. Talking about reducing breast cancer risk today. If you have any question, comment on this, give us a call, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. We did ask folks folks in the survey, is there anything that you do to lower your risk of breast cancer? These were some of the responses. Clean eating and natural-based cleaning products, limiting exposure to known carcinogens. Another said, I take Evista. Another said, I try to eat healthy. Another said, and this is the woman who was speaking about basically seeing that that change in the lump that she detected, how the treatment that she used worked within 2 weeks, and that even the pea-sized lump had completely disappeared. This is the treatment that she's talking about here. She says taking 12.5 milligrams of iodine, Iderol every day. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Avoid excess sugars, starches, and breads. Avoid chemicals in my food, hygiene products. I don't spray my lawn with chemicals. We don't use bug spray or sunscreens that are full of chemicals. I also use castor oil packs on my breasts occasionally, as well as other parts of my body. And we've got some more, but just those ones so far. Becky, anything that you'd like to add or comment on?
Yeah, I think because of the way it is, I think because that there's not been a huge leap in cancer treatment, it's just the standard chemotherapy, radiation, lumpectomy, mastectomy, and that's kind of it. So I think that even in some of the medical fields, I think more functional medicine is coming, and like integrative medicine is coming a little bit into that. And so some cancer doctors will recommend, yes, we've found that these things actually do help, but they still want to push you to do all the other things. And I think that's where this one woman is coming from, where she realized like there's not much out there for me in treatment options. So I'm going to do my own research. And there is a ton of research out there that's been done independently for women who have either beat breast cancer or naturally done it, or maybe a mix of both. And there are studies saying that iodine can help prevent and treat breast cancer to a degree. I don't want to just make that statement. I don't want to say do that and your breast cancer is going to go away. But in the information that I've read and what I've personally done myself, I feel like iodine is very helpful, especially in reducing different changes in your breasts like cysts and such. And so many women are trying that type of treatment. They are doing iodine, and it is effective on some different cancers. Now, breast cancer, so you got to approach each one differently. Talk more about that later.
All right, yeah, we'll get right back into that. And I've got some questions about iodine when we get back as well. I don't know a lot about this, I really don't, but I know, Becky, that you've shared a little bit with me about iodine, not just in when it comes to breast cancer, basically preventative medicine there, or some sort of treatment or some application to breast cancer, but even in other ways. I know you've mentioned iodine, so I want to hear more about that when we get back, specifically about the dangers, I guess, of making sure that your iodine intake is done the right way. So we'll bring that to the open forum when we get back. That seems like something that is worthy to kick around a little bit. But anything else that you want to bring, feel free to give us a call right now, 1-877-511-5483. We'll be right back.
What you're offering and giving to me, you deserve to get back, because you're offering more than I can give.
I learned so much through the station on the cross. I listen to the radio station daily, and I absolutely love it.
I was attending the chapel and places like that, and through your programs, I was able to find out how other Protestants had come back into the Catholic Church. God bless the Station of the Cross.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
Hi, Joe McLean here, host of A Catholic Take, heard on the Station of the Cross each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. A bold synthesis of information and inspiration, keeping you up to date on the news and issues that you may have missed from a courageous Catholic perspective. That's A Catholic Take, weekday morning, 7 a.m. right here on the Station of the Cross and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app. Download it today. God love you.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ. The genius of the Middle Ages was to see all things as a whole and integrated. Now everything is specialized. And I love this one quote. It says we're learning more and more about less and less.
Until eventually we know everything about nothing.
The Catholic Current, 5 p.m. Eastern, from the Station of the Cross and on the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
I might have gone to church, at Christmas time, gradually quit going. It's not as scary as I thought it was. It's a much more warm and open place, and God really is about love. It's not about the rules and the things that I remember as a young child. It really is about the love that God has for each one of us that's so deep and wonderful.
If you've been away from the Catholic Church for any reason, visit CatholicsComeHome.org.
To the Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here talking about reducing breast cancer risk today and various aspects related to that. If you have any comment, question, feel free to give us a call, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Let's go to the phone lines now and bring in Kathy in Amherst, New York. Kathy, thanks for calling in. What are your thoughts today?
Hi, Jim. I'm a 3-time survivor of breast cancer. It started in my mid-40s, which is a high-risk age. And I learned that obviously early detection is very key. It actually led me to a stage 4 because my doctor wasn't listening to my complaints over a period of several months, and I was under chronic stress caring for my mom. But what I want to say is that one of the things that we don't look at as much is lifestyle, managing weight, alcohol consumption, stress levels. A lot of women are multitasking, they're working, they're traveling, raising a family. That sort of lifestyle leads to higher cortisol levels and, can really affect the immune system. Hydration, good sleep, eating whole foods. I think all those things are key factors. And I really believe I see a lot of women just not taking care of themselves like they could. But certainly early detection, if you find something early, it can prevent a lot of suffering. And, of course, your faith. I mean, I wouldn't be in a peaceful state with my condition if it weren't for all the prayers, being anointed by my priests, and going to healing masses. I think all of that really counts. Whether you're sick or not, you can still, if you're suffering mentally, reach to your Catholic community.
Wow. Outstanding call, Kathy. Thank you so much for calling in and sharing that with us. Becky, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kathy. I think everything you said is exactly what we should be focused on and exactly what most women are not focused on. And I think you bring up a good point is early detection. And I think that if you know your own body and, doctors aren't listening to you, then for us, it's time to find a new doctor, or it's time to just really advocate for ourselves, because that's a common story you hear from women. And that's why, I personally chose to do the thermography because breast cancer rates, so cancer cells double in number on average every 90 days. So say 2 cells every 90 days becomes 16 cells 1 year, 256 cells for 2 years, and so on and so forth. Mammogram can only, at 5 years, you have like 1 million cancer cells. And that's where a mammogram usually detects it. It's about 1 centimeter in size. And so you could be going 5 years growing cancer and not know it, where thermography, they can see that detection as early as like pre-cancer. Okay, your body looks like it is the perfect breeding ground for cancer, and you might start to develop it in this area right here. And each breast has a fingerprint, kind of like your fingers do, and they take images and then they compare images you start off going once, and then you go 3 months later, and they compare, and then you go once a year, just like your annual mammogram, and then they compare to see if there's disease and blood flow and heat going in different parts of your bodies, especially through your breasts, and then they can make certain diagnostic conclusions based on that. And I think when it's paired with something like an ultrasound, you have a really good chance of detecting something early. Some women choose thermography and mammograms, and that's their detection. They just feel more comfortable getting a mammogram because it's very common in the United States. I think if it wasn't so common, not as many women would choose that, but because it is, I think, well, it's very easy to get. You get one free mammogram a year, so it's cheap, and thermography is not cheap, and it's usually out of pocket. And ultrasound, it's very hard to get a doctor's script to go get one, and it's not super available, and it's expensive. So, they're not making as much money on those things, and there's a whole thing behind it. But I think it's really important to know that, it's really possible to find it early. And if something's up, then it's time to get checked. And then as well as everything else you were saying, Kathy, those things aren't always possible to do everything perfectly, but it's a really good start to really try to work on some of that.
Yeah, again, awesome call. Really appreciate it, Kathy. Thank you so much for calling in. God bless you. And yeah, that thought too about, yes, just making sure that all the things that we know about how to be healthy in general, let's do those things, right? That's going to be helpful in lowering the risk of all kinds of things, including cancers. So yeah, let's make sure that we are really trying to advance in our diet and our stress levels, and getting some sunlight, getting outside in nature, and healthy amounts of exercise, some good vigorous exercise. All of these things, very, very important. And so, yeah, we've got a few more things to get to on how do you lower risk of breast cancer that folks did write in on the survey that I definitely want to make sure to bring up here. But real quick on the iodine, Becky, I've never, at least to my knowledge, I've never used any sort of iodine supplementation, but I think that I've heard that can be somewhat dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Anything to that? Anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, so I wouldn't just go start taking iodine right away. You have to, I went on an iodine protocol based on different tests that I had through a practitioner, and went very slow with it because, Americans are super deficient in iodine, and that's why they started iodizing salt. But it's funny because there are certain things that make you depleted in iodine. It competes. And three of those things are fluoride, chlorine, and bromide. So they started adding bromine to bread baked goods. So we're consuming all this bromine. They start adding chlorine to city water so that, it kills all of the junk and stuff like that. And then they start adding fluoride to our city water as well. So these three things that we're continually, bringing into our bodies are now taking over the iodine space. And so iodine is competing with that. And these three things are like winning out. So iodine gets flushed out. These three things go up. They're dangerous. They can cause cancer. And then iodine is away. We're low in iodine, and then different things come up like cancers, or there's a whole bunch of issues that a lack of iodine does cause. You can just look it up. It's a lot of information is online. And so as you start taking iodine, you have to go slow because your body will start to detox those three things, the fluoride, the chlorine, and the bromine. And there are some cofactors that you should take with it. I even went on a protocol, different supplements to take before I started the iodine, so my body was prepared and able to accept it. And I felt great once I was on the protocol and was taking it regularly. And I don't think it's something you need to be on forever. I know some people advocate for that, but I think it's good to get your levels up. If you're super low, it can be a cause for a lot of difficult and painful things. And so it's good I think it's really good to, get tested for that before you dig deeper. But feel free to reach out to me with any questions, because something that I've researched a lot lately. And there's some really good resources out there for that.
All right. And you can find Becky through the website, safehavensmama.com. That's safehavensmama.com. Talking about reducing breast cancer risk today. If you have any comment or question for us, give us a ring, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. A couple other comments that we received regarding anything that you do to lower your risk of breast cancer. One comment from Gabe in Carrollton, Texas. Says eating a carnivore diet reduces the likelihood of contracting all types of cancer to virtually zero, since cancer cells live off glucose and keto diets starve cancer cells. Look into Professor Thomas Seyfried and his research on metabolic therapy. When you eat a meat-only diet, you will be in the best shape of your life, rarely get sick, and not need to go to the doctor for checkups. All right, thank you for that comment, Gabe in Texas. And I know, look, the folks that are doing the carnivore diet thing, they are really into it, and they are big time advocates for it. And it seems that they're getting real results on it. That's why they're so excited about it. I would say it's something that we definitely should be looking into. We need more information to look into this more. What is actually going on here with these carnivore diets? It seems rather strange, but the results seem like they are quite good. So yeah, definitely something to look into. I'm still an omnivore, and I do think that, to me, it's something just seems right about eating vegetables, right? And making sure that we're having a healthy dose of vegetables in our diet. So I eat a lot of meat. I want to have a lot of protein in my diet. That's basically my baseline. But I also want to get a lot of vegetables in that diet as well. In fact, there are studies out there. I was noticing a study as I was doing some research on breast cancer risk and prevention and all of that today. There is a study out there that I believe talks about, for young women, I think around 17 years old, young adult women, and that there's some data showing that if they're eating a good amount of vegetables during those young years, that actually has some sort of a factor in preventing breast cancer later on. I didn't go in and find the study, but folks can look it up for themselves. But there may be something there to consider as well. But we do appreciate your comment, Gabe, and also your encouragement to maybe take that up as a topic on another episode, getting into more of the carnivore diet and what's happening there. So yeah, it's on the list now. So thank you for that. Also, Katerina in Boston, Massachusetts said, definitely not birth control pills or estrogen pills. Also healthy diet and minimum stress, exercise, and pray. And to her point on the so-called birth control pills or the estrogen pills, I also want to mention abortion. There's a film out there called hushfilm.com, a pro-abortion woman's investigation into the possible negative side effects of abortion. And one of the things they take up well in the film is talking about how abortion does seem to significantly raise breast cancer risk. And also, we're also talking here about what Katerina raised, which is these hormonal so-called contraceptives. They also raise breast cancer risk. Now, the medical establishment is now admitting this. They've been admitting this now for a little bit. I remember when I was a little bit younger, I had a friend who was a PA, and he was adamant about how there's no way that these hormonal contraceptives are raising breast cancer risk. But the medical establishment admits that now. They just want to minimize it as much as possible and say, well, it's a minimal. They're raising it to a minimal degree, and there may still be important reasons why women still need to be taking these hormonal contraceptives. Now, also keep in mind that when we're talking about these so-called contraceptives, hormonal so-called contraceptives, they're also abortifacient. Every birth control pill is abortifacient, so you can actually conceive a child while taking these so-called contraceptives, and then that child can't implant into the uterine lining because it's been thinned out as a way to make sure that a pregnancy doesn't go any further. And so people are having early abortions from these hormonal contraceptives. That's a fact. And so what does that do to a woman's body, particularly risk to breast cancer? I don't think we have a full understanding of any of this at this point, but we do see there is some link there for sure. Even the CDC itself, even on their website, what can I do to reduce my risk of breast cancer? They mention if you are taking or have been told to take hormone replacement therapy or oral contraceptives, birth control pills, ask your doctor about the risks and find out if it's right for you. So there's the way that they deal with it, but they at least have to be mentioning it now because they know that there's a link. And one of the things they mention as well is to not drink alcohol or to drink alcohol in moderation. Now, Kathy brought this up on her call, and it's an important point, one that I had never heard before, that actually even studies show that even a drink a day can actually raise your risk for breast cancer. Now, again, that may be a minimal raising of that risk for somebody, but there's still a link there. There's still data showing that it does raise the risk of breast cancer to some degree, and that alcohol really should be thought of as what it is, which is a carcinogen. And so, yes, moderation, temperance, all of that, but maybe even abstinence may be a good choice for many when they look at the facts of what alcohol is and what its effects are on the body that goes beyond just, not drinking in moderation and drunkenness and all of that. We're going to have a bunch more when we get back. Final segment to come. Stay tuned.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. Bioethics watchdog Wesley Smith has found that assisted suicide in Australia is following Canada's darkened pathway into once unimaginable practices. Even while one territory considers assisted suicide, government critics complain that only adults would have access to that arranged dying. They propose curious mechanisms to determine if a child is mature and capable of voluntarily arranging end of life. A 1986 law called entail specifically calls for protections for the unborn. A federal appeals court Tuesday said the White House may not use that law to demand emergency room abortions in all 50 states. Criticizing the ruling, abortion-friendly legacy media pundits are resorting to fabricating stories, denying layers of state protections for mothers, ectopic pregnancies, doctors, and children. This is Life News Radio. We must have an end to abortion and an end to the toxic watershed of ideas behind its causes. If the problem were simple, we could have a simple answer. But abortion is rooted in a long, tangled web of lies about human life and the dignity of the human person. Pray daily for a culture of life. In other stories, abortion pills are increasingly falling into the hands of those who would violently prey on women. And from staggered expiration dates for the two-part protocol to women unprepared for side effects and contraindications, abortion pills simply do not make sense. That is all compounded by some who are stockpiling chemical abortion pills. And a UK researcher says data measuring abortion safety is not only skewed, it is used to make false conclusions that promote abortions. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here talking about our topic today, reducing breast cancer risk. If you have any final comment or question you want to get in here today, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Also, if you want to get in touch with Becky for any reason, get those free resources we talked about in the beginning of the show and a bunch more good information, you can go to her website, safehavensmama.com. That's safehavensmama.com. All right, we had some questions come in via the survey. One from Heather in Elma, New York. She asks, what are the alternative breast cancer screening methods and cancer treatments that you referenced? What evidence is there of their efficacy? Thank you. And we appreciate you, Heather, and all those who responded to the survey today. Thank you so much for doing so. But Becky, I think we may have already touched on this quite extensively during the show. Anything else that you want to add or anything else that you want to make sure to get in before the end of the show? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think we kind of mentioned most of them. I think alternative methods would be thermography, ultrasound, and self breast checks, and And I guess mammography, when I know that 3D digital thermography or 3D mammography has less radiation. I know some people do MRIs as well, and that uses no radiation at all. So those are options. Those are expensive though, so it's tricky. I think if you're younger, I think thermography is the way to go because you can keep up with that. If you have an immediate attention, like an immediate need, and you need to get it checked out right away, they almost always schedule an ultrasound. So I think that's good. I know that a lot of women do biopsies. There's a whole new thing coming out about biopsies. It's something to really be aware of and to really pray about if that's what you need, because sometimes when they remove the cells, so they're trying to get into the tumor, take the cells out, and then test it to see if you have cancer. That's really the only way they can ever know for sure, like what kind of cancer it is. But when they have done that at certain times, actually they can like drip out the remnants of the cancer, and it spreads in the breast right there. So that's a major issue. So I would say definitely look into the risks of biopsies, though they are widely done and usually pushed by doctors to just do this. We'll know right away, especially just as precautionary method. It's not even that this is a cancer, we need to know right away. Well, let's just check in case. And I don't think you ever really want to do that, like just in case, unless that's what you're comfortable with. But it's just good to know the risks and good to know like that we can't just trust everything our doctor tells us. I have a doctor who I went there recently because I struggle with fibrocystic breasts. And so I like to get those checked up. And I had a bit of a scare not long ago. And they sent a letter in the mail or in an email saying, get to your nearest breast center as soon as possible. This is an emergency. And it really was scary. And they didn't really go into what it was until I, found more information and kind of was able to learn a bit more of what was going on. But when I did talk to my doctor, she had yelled at me saying, you never went for your mammogram and you're not doing what I'm telling you to do. And I'm 42. And, if you look at the guidelines, a lot of times it's 50 and over. And so, you have that choice to wait until you're 50. Well, my doctor is very adamant that I should be going every year, and I didn't feel comfortable. And basically she's like, well, that's what we do here. And you're free to go find a different doctor. So I did. I went ahead and looked at different alternatives because you don't have to do something you don't want to do. Your cancer's not going to spread in a day to the point where you have no other options, or a week. Like, it's okay to stop, take the time to pray, take the time to do your research. There's a lot of fear when it comes to cancer, and it's scary. That's what we're taught, that cancer is scary and that once you get it, it's a death sentence, but it's actually not. We don't know for sure what's going on. I know a lot of people say that we all have cancer in our bodies. It's just about, making sure that it doesn't spread and keeping it contained and being healthy. And so I think that's the number one thing, is just do your research and don't panic, and just, God's going to find the perfect way for you to figure out. I think it's key to know that don't be fear-mongered into doing these things you don't want to do. So, those are the few things that I would say. I think you asked me another question, but I can't really remember because I went off talking about that. So
no, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, very, very good. Good stuff. And yeah, let's get this in. This is from Pamela Ann in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And she asks, why are people against natural treatments? Even if they know the doctors can't help them anymore, they will not try alternative natural medicines. When my mom had thyroid cancer that had spread to her whole body, I had the privilege of caring for her. I gave her the pain meds. She was not getting any other treatments, but I also gave her 50 milligrams of iodine and vitamin C and took away all forms of sugars and starches. She was getting better, where people noticed that she was looking healthier. The masses in her neck and mediasternum were shrinking because she could swallow and breathe better. She did not like the treatment I was giving her because she wanted her sugar. And one day she said to me, when you're gone, I'm not going to do this. This may sound very sad, and I think it is sad that she no longer wanted to live, but she gave me a great gift by telling me how she felt, because I was trying to solve the problem of how do I teach my mom how to take care of herself better, and how can I manage that with a family when I live 4 hours away. She no longer wanted to live, and I could not make her live. I learned the importance of iodine for healthy and sick people. I got to see the results of the iodine consumption, as well as how sugar plays a role in cancer. We thank you for everything you wrote there, Pamela, and sharing some of your story. Becky, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, the medical fields, their primary goal is to push what they do, push what they learn, that's the only way. And that's chemotherapy and radiation and usually surgery. And if you even bring up alternative treatment word, you usually get shunned immediately. And I know many people who have shared that, doctors would tell them, you're going to die if you don't do what I tell you to do, or this is going to give you less time to live. And those people end up doing something, an alternative option, and they do okay. So it's like these doctors are trying to, play God and tell you this is when you're going to die, and this is what we think you have, and you better do what I'm going to tell you to do. And it's going to cost your insurance thousands and thousands of dollars. So if you kind of put the pieces together, a lot of it sounds like money. I'm not saying there's not good oncology doctors out there who are trying to actually help people, but the amount of time and research and how far we are in technology, it's kind of amazing that we don't have different treatments other than chemotherapy and radiation. And so that's why many people are seeking out alternative treatments. And I think there are a ton to try. And so I think if you're diagnosed with cancer, or if you want to prevent cancer, look into alternative cancer treatments. There's so many different diets and protocols that people have done and have been effective. I think a good resource is Chris Beat Cancer. It's Chris Wark, and he, beat his own cancer, and he talks a lot about different ways, and he has a lot of testimonials of people who have reversed cancer naturally. And I don't think it's a crazy idea anymore to try to go that route. I think it's different for everybody, and some people do a mix of both. But it makes me sad when I hear stories of people who are being bullied and bossed around, and then they give in and they do it, and they feel like, I don't feel like that was the best thing for me. So just remember that these people, you're kind of like a number, there's like next, check it off the list, next. They're just trying to do what they can do, and they don't know you. They don't know everything about you. They don't know your genetics. They don't know your makeup. They don't know if you had Lyme disease or mold toxicity or all these things.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Becky. Thank you to everybody who wrote in on the survey. Thank you to Kathy in Amherst, New York, who called today. And, we're doing a show on purgatory on Wednesday. I think there's some similarity here where it's like, we don't have to wait until something happens before we start doing good things for our bodies and our souls. Let's start now. We know some good things we can do that we're not doing. Let's do them. Let's go ahead and just get started in that purification process, both spiritually and physically, and let's start moving forward in those good directions. Again, you can reach out to Becky if you want to get any more information there, safehavensmama.com, safehavensmama.com, and we'll see you next week on Monday for more wholeness and healing. God